Hello, welcome to Dream Self Diaries, a series dedicated to helping you develop healthy habits and up-level your mindset so that you can embody your dream self today. We are talking about how to deal with uncertainty while building your dream life because this is something that I am currently going through. I graduated in the summer. I'm now in the process of finding employment. I have spent the past few months living in this state of uncertainty, in this limbo. I want to help you. When we think about what we want our dream life to look like or what we're working towards, it can feel like that thing is a fixed point in time and that it's only once we get there that we'll be living our dream life and be our dream self. But I would encourage you, instead of putting all of that focus on the future, instead to look at parts of your life now that you may have changed. Yes, you might have an idea of your dream life that doesn't match with your physical surroundings. Maybe you want to live in a different country and you're not living there, so you're like, well, this isn't my dream life. Maybe your job isn't what you want it to be. So there will be physical things, but I would encourage you to look at any kind of emotional growth or any things that you've been challenging yourself to do. So if I look, for example, I'm in recovery from addiction, so that's a massive thing. In the last few years, I am far closer to my dream reality because I am sober now. I'm able to think long term and work towards my goals, and I'm passionate about things. I can take action and I'm excited about the future. But even aside from that, the things that I've done, like starting a YouTube channel, it's so easy to concentrate on what we don't have and be like, oh, I don't have this, so I'm not living my dream life, or I'm not like this, so I'm not my dream self yet. Start looking at the things that you do have, the things that you already are, things that you've accomplished so far, and remind yourself of those things, because there is a part of you that is already living your dream life. You're living it today. If past you were to look at what you were doing today, they would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you were brave enough to do that. Or look at your circle of friends, that's so cool, look at where you're living, or look at how much money you're making. I know it's difficult when we have negative situations in our life that we're having to deal with and we're like, this isn't my dream reality, this isn't what I want. But it's so easy to focus on what's lacking. Instead, this is why I talk about gratitude a lot, because doing a daily gratitude list has been so helpful for me. Focus on what you have. That is addressing your dream life. Think about the ways that you already are living in some kind of version, or at least you're not at the very beginning of your dream life journey. You probably have some elements there already that you just want to build on. And also, I would say, remember that the goalposts will always be moving. Even if you think, for example, like starting a YouTube channel, I might be like, oh, if I can get 50 views on a video. But once you do that, everything moves. Like, more is never enough. Maybe this is just an addict thing, but I think it's the same with everyone. We're never happy with where we are. There's a certain sense of dissatisfaction. In terms of dealing with uncertainty, we've addressed the dream life element. We're thinking about that. I would say, remember that change is the world's natural state. So where I live right now, it is autumn or coming into autumn. The leaves are starting to fall off the trees. It's starting to get colder. It's definitely starting to get dark a lot earlier. Change is the norm. There are those of us who don't really like change, but I've been learning to lean into it, hence this whole thing about living with uncertainty. But aside from the seasons, time is always going forward. That's a constant change. I was looking at the moon on a walk the other day because it was an early walk, so I could see the moon still in the sky, and then the sun coming up and how quickly the moon faded. Things are always changing. Like, the earth is always moving round, right? We don't feel it because gravity and whatever. I'm not scientific, but movement is the earth's natural state. Things are always changing. The same with aging, which I guess comes with time. Things are always moving on. Nothing is ever static. Uncertainty is horrible. Like, that's a horrible feeling to deal with. But living in that uncertainty is living in a period of change. So with my example, it's I finished one thing, I finished my degree, I'm now looking for something else, but I'm in this interim period, which is change. I'm not a graduate anymore. I am moving forward. Time is moving on. Things are changing. Just because change is normal though, that doesn't mean that it's any easier to deal with. But I'm just trying to remind you that uncertainty, while we don't like to think of it as normal and we like to think that things are a certain way and they stay that way, we like to think that there's security and that things happen in the way that they should happen. We're going to talk about that later. Change is normal, and it's normal to feel this horrible sense of uncertainty. Whatever uncertainty you're feeling, whether it's to do with your family or your friendships, your career, if you're like me looking for a job and in this liminal space of like, what am I doing? And looking for a job then becomes your job, and it's very odd. Remember that this is just a season of change for you. This uncertainty, it's the same thing as what's happening with the leaves coming off the trees in autumn. This is just a season of your life, and it's hard when you're in it to see it in the context of what your life is going to be like because you're immersed in it. But I keep thinking whenever so many things, it's been so up and down with applying to different jobs and hearing back from people or not hearing back from things that I thought would be good. And I just keep coming back to, is this going to matter in a year? Before I start getting too upset about things, too attached to things, I think, is this going to matter in a year? And most of the time the answer is no, because who knows what's happening in a year? It's just not that important. Viewing this time of uncertainty as a season is helping me and reminding myself that it's not permanent, because nothing is, right? The same way that we talked about with nature and with time. Nothing is permanent. And I'm even trying to remind myself that this might even be a period of time that I'll be nostalgic about. So if you're going through a period of uncertainty, I know it might sound ridiculous because you might be thinking, I will never miss this time. I want to get to a specific thing. I want my career sorted, or I want my relationship sorted. I want to have my social circle formed. I want to sort out my house. Like, everything is a mess. Whatever uncertainty you're dealing with, it may be hard to believe that in some point in time you'll be missing this time of your life. But you never know. You can get nostalgic for the most, I find at least, for the most ridiculous things, in terms of like, you lived through something awful, but even then there might be like moments of good in it, and you'll then be nostalgic for those little moments of good, even if you zoomed out and were like, well, the rest of my life at that time was awful, but there was this one, you know, whether that was like, oh, I spent this time watching this TV show, or this album came out, or something small like that. You can be nostalgic for that time, even if the rest of your life was a mess. Remind yourself of that as well as you're dealing with this uncertainty. In a year, you may well be nostalgic for this uncertain time where you have more free time, or you're dating around, or working on this project and you're not sure in which direction it's going yet, and you wish you could just figure it out. But you may, at some point, miss that time. The same way as I've heard some YouTubers talk about, like, enjoy the time when your channel is small or when you don't know what you're doing. Just enjoy being in that space because there's not so much pressure. There are pros and cons to everything, and it doesn't feel like it when you're stuck in that uncertain feeling and you're dealing with this uncertainty day after day and it feels relentless. But there will be a part of it that has some benefit to you, even if it's gonna be in the future, you looking back and missing this time. Something that's been helping me deal with uncertainty is to lean into the feeling. It's really uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, but we can sometimes run away from things if we're scared of them, and then we create this kind of aura around them, like things become more scarier than they actually are. There's a reason that the quote, "the only thing we have to fear is fear itself," there's a reason that that is such a memorable quote. It's true. Fear can be its own monster. So if we're talking about how to live with uncertainty, dealing with uncertainty in a practical sense is really scary. It means you don't know what's going to happen. And we're going to talk about how we really don't know anything that's going to happen. The world could be hit by an asteroid tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Nothing is guaranteed. We create these little systems to make ourselves feel better, but at the end of the day, nothing is certain. So everything is uncertainty, but we can play in this little arena that we've made of like normality. We're gonna go into that because I have a lot of thoughts. But if we think of uncertainty as this scary feeling, in his book No Bad Parts, Richard Schwartz talks about how we have different parts of us which reside in different parts of our body. This might sound strange. The book is really good, so I do recommend you read it and make your own mind up about it. It's all about getting in touch with different parts of yourself that feel different things. Every part of you is motivated from a different reason, but it's motivated to protect you and to help you. So you may have a part of you that is trying to keep you safe by eating a lot or by pushing people away. You might be looking at that part and thinking, this isn't helping me. This behaviour of isolating myself, that's not helping me. But that part of you has learned at some point in your life that isolating will help you, even if it's only in the short term. And doing parts work is about getting in touch with all of these different parts, working out what motivates them. And to do this, he goes through so many exercises in the book, which is why I like it, because it's very practical straight from the beginning. Each chapter has some exercise that you can do. It's not just theory, like you can apply it to your own life and sit there and do the exercises. And one of them is about, where do you feel a part residing? So you might have an inner critic which you feel is in your ear, something like that. Or you might feel something in your heart or in your shoulders. And for me, uncertainty, I think like a lot of us, because it provokes anxious feelings, you can feel it like in your stomach, you can feel it in your shoulders. It's not nice. And because it's not nice, we can want to run away from it. And that's why I'm saying we need to lean into it. If you lean into it, not only will you be able to cope with it, but you will see that it's not that scary. It's uncomfortable, but it's not frightening. Whereas if we look at it from the outside and we try and keep our distance from it, from the uncertainty, we can start running away with all of these scenarios in our head of the bad things, the bad outcomes that could happen if you don't get this job, if you don't get this promotion, if you don't find this person to be in a relationship with, if you don't sort out your house or your housing situation. And yes, there are plenty of bad things that can happen, but those thoughts for me always seem to happen at a distance from the uncertainty, if that makes sense. Whereas if I not invite it in, but if I lean into it, if I'm like, okay, I am feeling agitated right now because of living in this uncertainty. If you lean into it and label what you're feeling, address it, it's not going to go away, obviously, because the situation that you're in, the physical situation, that's not resolved. Whether that's looking for a job like me, working out your career, working out your family, it's not going to resolve the uncertainty just by leaning into it and facing it. But it will take some of the pressure off you emotionally, because you won't then be dealing with the fear of uncertainty as well as this uncertain situation that you have to handle. And then once you lessen that fear, you're able to operate with a clearer mind and think, okay, I'm going to apply to this many jobs today. It's scary, it's intimidating, I feel uncomfortable, I feel it in my gut, or I feel this pressure in my shoulders, or I have this inner critic who's saying all of these bad things about me, you'll never find a job, whatever. I can feel all of those things. It's a lot, it's horrible, but what can I do? I can apply to this many jobs today. I can think about the fact that in a year, hopefully, this will be resolved, or at least I will have learnt new skills, I will have met new people, things will be different. Even if I'm still dealing with this same uncertain situation, there will be things that have changed. I mentioned the importance of labeling what you're feeling. So I quite often say I'm feeling agitated. I can't find a job, I'm feeling agitated. If you are in a space where you can actually say that out loud, you're by yourself, you can go to a bathroom somewhere, just say quietly under your breath, I'm feeling agitated because I can't resolve this situation. I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling sad because I'm living in this uncertainty. I'm feeling restless because I'm living in this uncertainty. There is power in acknowledging what you're feeling. And one of the ways that I like to do this is through journaling. I talk about journaling a lot on my channel because I love it. One of the journal prompts that I use basically every day is today I feel. And then I list everything I felt. It's often contradictory because in the same day, you can feel so many emotions. You can feel peaceful, but you can also feel agitated. You can feel joyful, but you can also feel stressed. It's a really good exercise and something that you can either just do in your head and list out the things that you felt today. Maybe like as you're drifting off to sleep, you can say to yourself, today I feel, and list everything you felt, all of the situations you've been through and the emotions that they provoked in you. It's really helpful in getting you in touch with your feelings and the way you feel. I find it particularly helpful being in recovery from addiction because in my addiction, any emotion that I felt was artificial, whereas now anything I feel, that's a real feeling. And it took me a while to work out what those feelings are, if that makes sense. So labeling them is a really easy thing that you can do, which will help you, again, lean into what you're feeling and realize that it's not so scary to feel negative emotions. It can be uncomfortable and unpleasant, but you don't have to be scared of it, and you can face it. And by facing it, by just saying, I'm going to coexist with this fear, I'm going to coexist with this sadness, coexist with this agitation. By doing that, you can clear your mind so that you can make better decisions to try and exit the uncertainty more quickly. I mentioned that we were going to talk about the fact that control is an illusion. That is what we're going to talk about now. Uncertainty is actually what life is. We pretend that things are a certain way and that they will stay that way and this is how things work. But I think the last few years have showed us that actually we have very little control over what happens. Uncertainty, like we talked about with the seasons, is natural. It's a part of life, and it can be difficult when we're stuck in this period of uncertainty because it feels very all-consuming. It feels anxiety-inducing. We don't like it. It feels uncomfortable. But it is actually what the world is like. Not that that is necessarily going to bring us any comfort, but if we're going to get existential about it, which, because it's me, we are, this period of uncertainty that you're going through for whatever reason, this period of uncertainty can be a time where you remind yourself of the bigger picture of what life is like. One of the practical things, we're going to go into some practical tips to help you deal with uncertainty. Sorry if you can hear my dog wriggling around on the sofa. I'm in a flow here, so I want to keep going. One of the practical tips that I have is to look at the stars, because I found that to be a really healing thing. It reminds you of your place in the world. It reminds you that the world is so vast, the universe is huge. We really aren't that important. There's multiple layers to this. You, in the context of the stars, you are not important because they are so immense. But you individually also have inherent value and are very important. So like, two things can be true at once, and we can pick whatever is going to be the most helpful for us in a particular moment. So if we're talking about a moment of uncertainty, it can be helpful to remind yourself of the bigger picture, of our mortality. I don't talk about this a lot, but this is definitely something I think about a lot. Control is an illusion. Stability is an illusion. Like I said, the world could get hit by an asteroid tomorrow or next week. Touch wood. It's difficult because we have to act as if everything's going to be okay all the time, as if everything is certain. You have to plan for it. You have to plan as if everything's going to be okay. For example, let's take a really benign example, because I don't want to, use the asteroid example. But you have to plan your commute into work. It's weird talking about work because I'm not currently going to work. Any event you go to, I guess, whether that's going to work on the train, you need to go meet a friend and you're going on the train, you are assuming that the train will be on time, that the train will take you to the right station, that everything will work out, because we can't live acknowledging the uncertainty that is inherent in every single thing that's happening, because life would just become unmanageable and you wouldn't be able to do anything because nothing is certain. So we have to plan for these things, but it is helpful to remind ourselves that we don't actually have control over anything. And like I said, the past few years, I think we all learned that this control that we think we have over our reality or over the systems that we exist in, that control is an illusion. Nothing is certain, nothing is for sure. We create these fake realities, we create like this fake story to comfort us, but also, like I said, because otherwise we would not be able to navigate life if we were constantly acknowledging that everything is uncertain. But it can be helpful, the same way that you might look back on this season and feel nostalgic for it, for, the times that you could sleep in late, or the times that you had free evenings so you could watch whatever you wanted or just hang out with your dog, times where you could wake up early maybe and see the sunrise, like I've been feeling that recently. None of this is for certain, and even with the example of going for a walk early, that's what I've been doing and I've been really enjoying it. But I've worked out that because the clock is going to go back in a few weeks, that means that if I'm out at 7 and I'm seeing the sky, beautiful colours, seeing the sunrise, like I said, I mentioned the moon, being able to see the moon really bright in the sky and then watching that fade as we go on our walk. In a few weeks, that won't be a thing anymore, because I'd have to get up at 6 o'clock to see that same sunrise. I may be getting this completely wrong. But in the same way as like 7 p.m. now and how dark it is at 7 p.m, in a few weeks that's going to be 6 p.m. and it's going to be that dark. While it's darker earlier, it's lighter earlier. And yeah, eventually that will change as we move towards December. And that can be an existential thing as well, if we're talking about how nothing is certain in like a cosmic sense and how things are always moving and changing. I had a conversation with someone on a walk because I was saying, oh, it's so nice to see the moon and feel small and feel like I don't really have to worry about anything and it's all okay. We then were talking about Buddhism. It's funny to have that kind of interaction and to be reminded of the impermanence of everything. I kind of held on to that because I was like, oh, it is okay. Like this uncertainty that I'm feeling, everything will be fine. The reason that I find looking at the stars so healing is because it can give you a sense of groundedness that you might be missing if you are feeling uncertainty. So I said we were going to talk about some practical things. I'm already talking about the stars, so we may as well start talking about the other practical things. I'll start with the stars. Looking at the stars is such a healing thing. I did it a lot when I was in rehab because there was nothing else to do. They took our phones away and like all of our technology, like if you had a laptop or tablet or whatever, everything went away at 9:30. Eventually then I started playing card games with the other people, the other inmates, but there was a period of time where I would just sit outside and look at the stars, and even before we got our phones taken away, people would be making calls to their friends and family, so there wouldn't always be someone about to like chat to. And because I went, in winter to rehab, it was dark so early that the stars would be out at like 6 o'clock, so after dinner we'd head outside and I'd go look at the stars. Looking at the stars is a really healing thing, really grounding thing, and it's such a small thing. I mean, obviously it depends on where you live, because if you're living in a big city, it's probably going to be a lot harder to see the stars. That can be something that's completely free to do. And now that we're coming into winter, depending on where you live, based on my analytics, a lot of people who watch my videos live in the US or the UK. We are going into winter, so you're going to have more time to see the stars because you're going to have longer nights. And not just the stars, but I think time in nature in general. I talked about seeing the moon and looking at the different phases of the moon has been really interesting and been something that I'm noticing. You could try like tracking the moon if you can see that from where you live. I know it will depend on like what side of the building you live on, but that can be something like a fun project and can give you a sense of progress, I guess, by watching the moon. I think that's the same with watching the sunrise, why I found it really helpful in the morning. It's a sense of movement and a sense of change that I feel like I'm missing in my own life. Like I feel kind of stuck in this uncertainty, but watching nature change and the seasons change, watching the leaves fall down, watching the sunrise, watching the clouds turn different colours in the morning, this change is therapeutic for me in this moment of uncertainty, and I think it would really help you too. Walking as well. If you can walk in nature, all the better, but even just walking around, again, that movement is really therapeutic. It can help you think things through as well. Good morning! Life got busy, so I'm finishing this video at a different time. I mean, it doesn't make any difference for you watching it because the clips are right next to each other, but I'm here with my cup of tea and no makeup, and we're carrying on with my list of practical things you can do to help you deal with uncertainty so that you don't let the anxiety associated with uncertainty run away with you. One thing that can be helpful in general, but particularly with dealing with uncertainty, is to focus on goals outside of whatever your uncertainty is associated with. So for me, it is to do with finding a job. I do have goals outside of that, so I've been focused on those things and they have really helped me. For example, my YouTube channel, I am trying to post at the moment 2 times a week, Mondays and Fridays, and that has given me a real goal, a measurable thing. So they talk about SMART targets to measure your progress. It's something that's specific, measurable, achievable. I was gonna say reasonable, that's definitely not it, and then with a time component. But having a goal outside of that uncertainty, I guess it's just like in general having a life outside of whatever the issue is that you're worried about, because it's very easy for that uncertain feeling to start creeping over into other parts of your life, because it can be really difficult to live with this uncertainty. Like for me, it's like, well, I need, we need money to survive. I need to buy myself some new shoes. Like I need to earn some money. All of my shoes, without exaggeration, all of my shoes except for my winter boots and my walking boots, any other shoe I own has holes, so I need to get new shoes. It's difficult when you're living with that pressure and that uncertainty. So practically focus on goals outside that. I also have my recovery to work on, so that gives me a focus. I just had a lovely call with someone in recovery. Having those things to focus on where I can look at and be like, oh, I am making some progress here, or at least I tried something different, or I'm still working towards something, that can give me that grounded, secure feeling that I'm currently missing in other parts of my life. So that is definitely something that can be helpful practically. Another helpful thing practically is to reframe any kind of stress or anxiety that you have associated with the uncertainty that you're going through. If you reframe that uncertain, stressed feeling as excitement, this can be helpful. And you might be like, this sounds silly. How is that going to work? In the same way that we talked about nature is always changing and change is normal, things are always moving. That's really exciting. Yes, it's difficult to be dealing with this uncertainty, but if I take my example of the job, I have so many opportunities now. There are so many different avenues and different paths I could be going down, and I've started on some things, and that's really encouraging to see that the skills I have are wanted by some companies. Stress and excitement, they kind of have similar feeling states. I'm not going to talk about anxiety so much here. Anxiety is something that we can feel day to day, and it doesn't have to be a disorder, but I don't want to feed into any kind of negative stereotypes about anxiety because I get enough of them in my life already. So I'm going to label it more as stress. It's like we talked about, where do you feel this uncertainty residing in your body? They can be similar. You can get butterflies when you're stressed about something, maybe it's a job interview or you're going on a first date. You just have a lot to do and your to-do list is huge. That can give you butterflies and you can feel uneasy. But in the same way, if you're excited about something, maybe you're going to pick friends up from the airport or you're having a reunion dinner with people you've not seen for a couple of years, you might get that same feeling of uneasiness in your stomach. But instead of it being because you're stressed, it's because you're looking forward. There's like this nervous excitement, this nervous energy. So that can help reframe your uncertain situation. Try and find something good in it and try and look at that more as something to be excited about. So I, at the moment, am choosing, instead of being stressed by the fact that I don't have a job, I don't have money, I need to afford whatever, instead I'm excited about the fact that I have all of these opportunities, that I am making progress and things are happening. I can treat the uncertainty as like a sea or like a river, and I'm just going with the current and seeing what happens and seeing where it takes me, and that is intimidating, but it can also be exciting, and I'm hopeful for the future. I talked about journaling, where I mentioned today I feel as a really useful prompt that I use every day because it's so good at connecting you with the way you feel. Journaling in general, I think here with uncertainty, writing about your feelings the same way that I said, articulate the way you're feeling. So say this uncertainty is stressing me out, and like verbalize that and say that out loud. It can also be helpful to write it down. I definitely like writing and articulating myself through writing. I'm getting better at articulating myself through speech, but writing has always been like my preferred mode of communication. And there's something about putting your words on paper, or if you want to type them, just getting that stuff out of your head. Particularly, I think free writing is good for this. If you want another kind of writing, scripting can be really helpful. I've talked about this a few times on my channel and I love it so much. Just set yourself a 10-minute timer and write as if you are living out your dream life. Write as if you have everything you already are working towards now. Write as if you're no longer in that uncertainty. And the idea with this is that you manifest that dream reality through writing about it and connecting with the feeling of being in that state, which is why I find it such a fun exercise to do, because I feel so hopeful, I feel so grateful, I feel so content and grounded and calm when I'm writing as if I've already got my dream life. As I said before, we need to remember that there are elements of our life now which are our dream life. Like, there's so much in my life now that I could only have dreamed would be my current reality, and I'm living that out now. But scripting is another practical thing that can help you deal with uncertainty. It can remind you of the vision you have. It can remind you that you are building your dream life and working towards that version of yourself and of your life. Another thing to remember is to just take the action that you can and then try and disconnect from either the outcomes or disconnect from the anxiety. Recognize that there's going to be some kind of time gap. Like, you're not going to get everything instantly. There will be some things which are going to happen more quickly, and it might suddenly feel like things are snowballing and everything is working out and it's all going in the right direction. But there will also be periods of time where you feel stuck and it feels like things aren't happening, and if anything, it feels like maybe you're taking a step backwards. But remember that 2 steps forward, 1 step back is still 1 step forward, even if it constantly feels like you're dragging or that things aren't happening quickly enough. Take the action you can and then let go. So for the job example, I can apply, I do what I can, take the action I can. I'm looking for jobs that I think I would be good at and that I think I would enjoy. I'm applying for those jobs. I'm taking the time to fill out the applications and tailor my CV to that job with the hope of making a good impression and making progress in my application. But I can only do so much. Just focus on what you can do. I can apply for these jobs and then it's out of my hands. I was talking to a friend recently and I was saying I've got an interview for a job and I'm acting like I already have it, and I kind of started apologizing for that, and she was just like, I love that. Do that. Like, act like you already have it. I'm acting like this job is already mine, and maybe that is foolish, but that is kind of like what I was talking about with scripting, acting as if you already have the thing that you want, because then hopefully I'll go into the interview, I'm feeling confident, relaxed, I'm like, this is already mine. Feeling that way is helping me deal with the uncertainty, because I'm like, well, I can decide in my mind that this job is mine and that I've got it. I don't have to be thinking, oh, what's going to happen? Am I going to get it? Or what's going to happen if I don't get it? I'm thinking, well, we don't have to deal with that now because I've got it. And then I will either get it or not, and then I'll deal with that. It's not going to be an issue. Take the action you can and then try and not let yourself stew in the uncertainty. Thank you so much for watching Dream Self Diaries, a series I'm doing on this channel which is dedicated to helping you develop healthy habits and level up your mindset so that you can embody your dream self today. If you want to see more videos about how to become your dream self, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.